You're standing at the edge of your breakthrough, and the only thing between you and the life you crave is a decision. Not a wish. Not a maybe. A decision. A bold, relentless, soul-shaking yes to the fight ahead. So, say it with me: I can. I will. I must. Because once you commit to those words, your life changes. This isn't motivation, it's a mindset. A declaration. A way of living. This is not about hype. It's about ownership. It's about rising when no one's watching and building when no one believes. There are 10 non-negotiable mind shifts that will unlock your next level, and you must hear each one to unleash the unstoppable force inside you. Miss one, and you miss the breakthrough. Number 1, decide before the world tells you who you are, before anything can change in your life, before results, recognition, or rewards. There's a quiet but powerful moment of decision, a line drawn in your own mind. It's not about waiting for signs, applause, or validation. It's about declaring, this is who I am now. That decision is not loud. It doesn't need to be. But it's final. It's defining. It's the moment you stop outsourcing your worth to other people's opinions and start living from your own power. Most people live on autopilot, reacting to the world instead of directing their life. They absorb other people's expectations. They wear labels that were never theirs to begin with. You're not smart enough. You're too late. You're not that type of person. And the problem is, the longer you let the world define you, the further you drift from who you were created to be. But when you say, I can, I will, I must, you break that chain. You take your power back. You become the author of your identity instead of the echo of someone else's opinions. Deciding who you are isn't about pretending. It's about remembering. It's about looking in the mirror and choosing to believe in your own voice, even when it shakes. It's saying, this is where I'm going. This is what I stand for. This is the standard I live by now. And the minute you decide, everything begins to align. It's the energy, the focus, the people around you. Decision is the switch that turns potential into momentum. This is why most people stay stuck. They never truly decide. They wish, they try, they hope, but they don't commit. They don't cross that line that says, no more excuses, no more waiting, no more playing small. But high achievers, they don't wait for the perfect moment. They make the moment perfect by deciding who they're going to be in it. They walk into the day already chosen, already aligned, already locked in. Their actions follow their identity, not their feelings. Your decision carves a path where none existed. It creates a reality before the results show up. You don't become unstoppable because of what you do. You become unstoppable because of what you decided to believe about yourself and act on consistently. Number 2, generate energy. Don't wait for it. Energy is not something you stumble into. It's something you create. You don't wait for motivation to show up before you act. You don't sit around hoping to feel ready. That's the trap most people fall into. They believe energy is a mood, not a choice. But when you live by, I can, I will, I must, you understand that your energy is your responsibility. You bring the spark. You light the fire. You become the generator, not the receiver. Your future depends on your ability to manage and multiply your internal power. That means doing the work to fuel yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You sleep with intention. You hydrate like your life depends on it. You move your body to unlock momentum. You fuel your mind with thoughts that inspire action, not drain it. Every day, you show up like a force, not because life handed you the energy, but because you created it on demand. Energy isn't about hype, it's about alignment. It's what happens when your body, mind, and mission are all on the same page. You stop leaking energy on drama, distraction, or doubt. You stop allowing your environment to dictate your internal state. Even in chaos, you anchor yourself. You move with purpose. You protect your peace because it powers your performance. You understand that if you don't own your energy, someone else will steal it. High performers don't just have energy, they maintain it. They generate it in the middle of pressure. When others shrink, they rise. When others complain, they create. That's the difference. They've trained themselves to access high-energy states at will, not just for themselves, but to lift everyone around them. Because energy is contagious. You walk into the room, and your presence changes the tone. Not because you're loud, but because you're clear. You're alive. You're switched on. You show up to the day already activated. You have rituals that refuel you, routines that reset you, habits that hardwire excellence into your system. You don't drift, you direct. You command your focus. You elevate your emotions. You don't wait for a perfect situation to feel powerful. You create power with your presence, with your intention, with your decision to live fully engaged in every single moment. Number 3, raise your standards, then never lower them again. Everything in your life rises or falls to the level of your standards. If your standards are low, you'll tolerate average. You'll accept excuses. You'll make peace with procrastination. But when you raise your standards, you change the entire game. You stop settling for just okay. You stop compromising on your goals. You stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. Saying I can, I will, I must, isn't just a motivational chant. It's a declaration that your old limits no longer apply. Rising your standards means demanding more from yourself than anyone else ever could. It's not about perfection. It's about intention. It's about deciding that mediocrity isn't an option anymore. You raise the bar in how you speak, how you show up, how you treat your time, how you fuel your body, how you pursue your calling. You stop cutting corners. You stop waiting for someone to push you. You push yourself because excellence is now your baseline, not your goal. And when you raise your standards, something powerful happens. You start attracting different results. You start pulling in opportunities that match the level of respect you've developed for yourself. People see the way you carry yourself, and they respond. Not because you told them who you are, but because you showed them. Your work speaks. Your habits speak. Your discipline speaks. Your standards are loud, even when you're silent. But here's the truth: raised standards mean nothing if you keep lowering them to match your mood, your circumstances, or your environment. Once the bar is up, it stays up. You don't let bad days lower your behavior. You don't let distractions dilute your discipline. You stand firm even when it's hard, because your identity is rooted in consistency, not convenience. You train yourself to show up strong, even when it's not easy. Especially when it's not easy. You become a person of integrity, not just in how you treat others, but in how you treat yourself. You keep the promises you make to you. That's the foundation of real confidence. Doing what you said you would do, long after the mood in which you said it has left. This is how champions think. This is how leaders live. They don't touch average, not because they think they're better, but because they know they're responsible for the example they set. Number 4, clarity is power. Get ruthlessly clear on what you want. You can't hit a target you can't see. You can't chase a goal you haven't defined. And you can't become someone you haven't envisioned. Clarity isn't optional, it's essential. It's the foundation of all power, all progress, and all momentum. When you say, I can, I will, I must, you are claiming ownership of a destination. But the declaration is only as strong as the direction behind it. Vague intentions lead to vague results. Ruthless clarity leads to focused execution. Getting clear means stripping away the fluff. It means going deeper than surface, level goals like be successful or be happy. What does success look like to you? Is it financial freedom, peak health, creative fulfillment, legacy impact? What does a great day look like for you hour by hour? What are you building? Why does it matter? You can't afford to leave that undefined. Because if you don't know what you want, someone else will decide for you. And you'll end up living their version of life while losing your own. Clarity is what separates the driven from the drifting, the committed from the curious. It turns your someday into a plan and your dream into a mission. With clarity, you know what to say yes to and what to say no to. You stop wasting time on things that don't move the needle. You stop chasing distractions disguised as opportunities. Every action becomes intentional. Every decision becomes strategic. You move like someone who knows exactly where they're going. And clarity doesn't come from sitting around thinking. It comes from taking action. You gain clarity by showing up, by doing the work, by testing, failing, adjusting, and refining. Every step forward reveals the next step, but you have to be in motion. Clarity loves momentum. It rewards commitment. The more you move, the clearer things get. You don't need the whole picture to start. You just need a bold first step and a commitment to keep adjusting as you go. When you get clear on your vision, everything shifts. Your energy aligns, your language changes. Your habits tighten. Your circle upgrades. You begin to feel unstoppable. Not because the road gets easier, but because your eyes are fixed on a destination that's worth every sacrifice. And now, when you say, I will, it carries weight because it's anchored in purpose, not just emotion. Number 5. Turn discipline into identity. Discipline is not just something you do. It's something you become. It's not about willpower or grit in the moment. It's about building a standard that becomes second nature. When you say, I can, I will, I must, you're not talking about a temporary grind. You're talking about shifting who you are at the core. You're building an identity that doesn't depend on motivation, mood, or circumstance. You're stepping into a version of yourself that does what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Most people treat discipline like a punishment, like it's something painful to suffer through in order to get a reward. But real winners see discipline as freedom. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from regret. Freedom from average results. Because when your actions align with your values and your habits align with your goals, you create a life that's congruent, strong, focused, and stable. Discipline is the bridge between desire and reality. It starts with the small things. Getting up when the alarm goes off. Showing up to train when it's raining. Saying no to distractions when no one is watching. Over time, these acts aren't just choices, they're who you are. I don't skip workouts. Becomes part of your character. I write every day. Becomes your identity. You don't need to convince yourself anymore. You just execute. Because discipline is no longer negotiable. It's embedded in your mindset. Turning discipline into identity means you don't have to hype yourself up each time. You don't have to talk yourself into doing the right thing. You've already decided this is who I am. And when that happens, your life simplifies. There's less inner conflict, less decision fatigue. You don't spend your day debating whether you feel like doing the hard thing. You do it because that's what the highest version of you would do. And that version is now in charge. People often ask how to stay consistent. The real answer is this: stop identifying as someone who struggles with consistency. Stop calling yourself lazy. Stop reinforcing stories that keep you stuck. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce a new identity. Every disciplined act becomes evidence that you are becoming someone stronger, sharper, and more self-led than ever before. Number 6, control the first hour. Win the whole day. The way you start your day is the way you shape your destiny. That first hour isn't just a routine, it's a declaration. It sets the tone, the tempo, and the trajectory of everything that follows. If you wake up and immediately dive into chaos, scrolling, reacting, rushing, you've already given your power away. But when you rise with purpose, when you own that first hour, you build unstoppable momentum before the world even has a chance to interrupt your flow. High performers don't stumble into greatness. They engineer it. And the blueprint starts with how they begin their day. The first 60 minutes are sacred. They are not negotiable. They are carved out to protect your mindset, sharpen your focus, and reconnect you to your mission. When you say, I can, I will, I must, you're not just making a statement. You're aligning every choice to reinforce that belief. And it begins the moment your feet hit the floor. This is the hour where you prime your mind. You feed it with thoughts that uplift, challenge, and empower you. Whether it's reading, journaling, prayer, meditation, or visualization, you take control of your mental state before the world tries to hijack it. You create space to hear your own voice, not the noise of social media, news, or someone else's agenda. You decide what kind of energy you'll carry into the day, and that decision echoes through every conversation, every task, every challenge you face. You also move your body. Not because it's trendy, but because movement is medicine. It wakes up your physiology. It generates energy on demand. It reminds your nervous system that you are alive, capable, and ready to lead. Even 10 minutes of intentional movement can change your state completely. You don't just feel better, you perform better. You become more alert, more focused, more driven. And that effect compounds throughout the rest of the day. Controlling your first hour is also about protecting your time. You start with intention, not reaction. You don't open your phone. You don't check messages. You don't dive into problems. You anchor yourself in clarity before the world demands your attention. Because once you've locked into your mission, it becomes harder for distractions to derail you. That hour becomes your daily reset. Your internal armor, your personal launchpad into the next level of execution. Number 7, speak with power or stay silent. Your words are not just sounds, they are seeds. Every sentence you speak is either planting power or poisoning potential. If you truly believe, I can, I will, I must, then your language must reflect that belief. You don't speak defeat and expect victory. You don't use weak, vague, excuse-filled words and expect to live a strong, focused life. What you say is what you sow, and over time, those words become the blueprint for your behavior, your mindset, and your results. When you speak with power, you command your inner world. You create clarity and confidence in your environment. You declare what you're building. You reinforce what you stand for. You don't speak like a victim. You speak like a leader. Like someone who understands that every sentence you say out loud is reinforcing an identity. So you choose your words like a warrior chooses a weapon, with precision, with purpose, and with control. It's easy to fall into lazy language, complaining, blaming, doubting out loud. But every time you do, you weaken your own spirit. You teach your mind that excuses are acceptable. That fear has the final say. That weakness gets a voice. But when you discipline your tongue, When you pause before reacting, when you speak only from power, vision, and truth, you rise above that noise. You begin to rewire your emotional responses. You become immune to drama and immune to distraction. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. Not everything requires a response. Not every fight deserves your voice. You don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't explain yourself to small minds. You don't justify your ambition to people who gave up on theirs. When you know who you are, silence becomes a weapon. You let your actions speak. You let your results shout. You let your life do the talking. Speaking with power also means speaking life over others. You build. You elevate. You affirm. You don't gossip. You don't tear down. You don't use sarcasm as a disguise for self-hate. You communicate like someone who's already reached the level they're striving for. Your words are clear, clean, and courageous. They are aligned with where you're going, not where you've been. And because of that, they carry a frequency that attracts discipline, excellence, and execution. Number 8. Master your triggers before they master you. Every person has emotional buttons, moments, words, or situations that stir up frustration, fear, or anger. But the difference between someone who lives empowered and someone who lives reactive is this: the empowered person knows their triggers and masters them. They don't let emotions hijack their focus. They don't give control of their peace to the outside world. When you live by, I can, I will, I must, it means you've made a decision to respond with power instead of react with panic. Your triggers are not weaknesses. They are invitations to grow. Each one shows you where there's still work to do, where healing hasn't fully happened, where your self-awareness needs to sharpen. The more conscious you become of what sets you off, then the more power you have to stay in control when life presses those exact buttons. Most people walk around triggered and don't even realize it. They snap at loved ones, sabotage opportunities, or shut down, not because of what happened, but because they haven't mastered what's happening inside them. Mastery starts with awareness. You slow things down. You learn to pause before reacting. You study your own patterns like a coach would analyze game footage. When do you spiral? What kinds of situations bring out the worst in you? Who drains your focus? Which comments feel like personal attacks even when they aren't? These answers matter because they expose the blueprint of your emotional wiring. And when you understand the blueprint, you can rewire it. This kind of control doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you own them. You feel fully, but you respond wisely. You take the sting out of your triggers by refusing to be a puppet on the strings of circumstance. You give yourself space to think, to breathe, to choose the high road, even when the low one feels justified. That's real strength. Not clapping back, but holding back. Not proving your point, but preserving your peace. The strongest people aren't the ones who never get triggered. They're the ones who have trained their nervous system not to hand over the steering wheel. They don't let temporary emotions destroy permanent progress. They've built a gap between what they feel and what they do, and that gap is where their power lives. That gap is where champions are made, where leaders rise, where clarity wins over chaos. Number 9. Stack small wins until they can't ignore you. Big breakthroughs don't come from one massive leap. They come from hundreds of quiet, unseen, consistent steps. Every small win you stack becomes a brick in the foundation of something unshakable. When you live by, I can, I will, I must, you don't chase perfection, you chase progress. You understand that one solid, focused action today is more powerful than 1,000 grand intentions you never follow through on. Small wins are how confidence is built, how momentum is created, how greatness is born. Most people overlook the small things. They want the spotlight before they've built the skill. They want the reward without the repetition. But you've committed to the grind. You celebrate the early mornings when no one claps. You show up when it's boring, when it's hard, when it's quiet. You stack the reps. You honor the process. Because you know that every tiny win compounds into something unstoppable over time. Each task you finish, each promise you keep, each hour you master, it all adds up. There is no such thing as an insignificant victory. Getting out of bed with purpose, making that one tough phone call, sticking to your plan when temptation hits, keeping your word when nobody would have known if you quit. Those moments define you. They are the proof. They are the receipts. They tell your subconscious mind, I follow through. And once your identity catches up with your actions, you become someone even you can't ignore. Stacking small wins is about consistency over intensity. It's about choosing progress when perfection isn't possible. You don't need to run the whole marathon today. You just need to take the next step. That's how champions are built. They don't look for shortcuts. They build systems. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on habits. They don't chase hype. They chase execution. Over and over and over again. When you keep showing up, you build a track record that speaks louder than any words. You become undeniable, not because you shouted the loudest, but because your results whisper truth that no one can argue with. Your success becomes a reflection of quiet choices made with discipline. And the world starts to pay attention, not when you arrive, but when your stacked wins begin to rise like a mountain that can't be ignored. Number 10. Visualize the fight, then embrace it when it comes. Success doesn't come to those who wish for comfort. It comes to those who are prepared for war. Not the kind fought with weapons, but the one waged in the mind, in your habits, in the unseen hours when no one is clapping and everything inside you wants to quit. When you say, I can, I will, I must, you're not asking for an easy path. You're preparing for the necessary one. The path that will stretch you, test you, break parts of you, and rebuild you stronger than ever before. Visualization is not just about seeing the finish line. It's about seeing the storm you'll have to walk through to reach it. You imagine the late nights, the early mornings, the setbacks, the self-doubt, the resistance that will show up without fail. And you don't fear it. You train for it. You rehearse your response before life ever throws the punch. You picture yourself tired, discouraged, misunderstood, and still moving forward. You don't just visualize victory, you visualize the fight. Because when you expect difficulty, you don't fold when it arrives. You don't panic. You don't start questioning your decision. You say, this is exactly what I came for. That mindset flips the switch. The obstacle is no longer a surprise. It's part of the process. You embrace the pain because you know what's on the other side of it. You welcome the test because you've already passed it in your mind 100 times. You walk through the fire already, knowing you're coming out refined. Champions don't just visualize their goals. They visualize the grind. They train their nervous systems for chaos so that when pressure comes, they don't break, they activate. They don't flinch. They don't hesitate. They respond with clarity, with strength, with strategy. And that kind of response doesn't happen by accident. It's built in advance. It's rehearsed in silence. It's carved through repetition. You become a weapon, not by avoiding the war, but by preparing for it mentally, emotionally, and physically every single day. So you start every morning by visualizing not just the win, but the work. You see the adversity before it shows up. You rehearse grace under pressure. You prepare for detours, delays, and disappointments. And when they arrive, you don't collapse. You rise with calm, with certainty, with the energy of someone who saw the storm coming and chose to walk into it anyway.